First contact in the void. The collective defense fleet had patrolled the outer reaches of known space for over 3 centuries without incident. That changed on the day the human vessel appeared. Admiral Ixora of the collective watched through compound eyes as the massive ship materialized at the edge of their sensors. It wasn't supposed to be possible. The quantum barriers around this sector had stood impenetrable for millennia. Yet there it was, a vessel of impossible proportions, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen that seemed to drink in starlight. Configuration unknown, reported her chief sensor officer, mandibles clicking in agitation. Energy signatures. They're like nothing in our database. Admiral. Ixora's crystalline exoskeleton sparkled with anxiety patterns, but her voice remained steady. Open a channel to Central Command. Priority Alpha. The human ship hung motionless against the backdrop of stars, nearly 2 kilometers in length. Its design defied conventional space architecture. No visible weapon ports, no engine nacelles, just smooth curves that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that hurt to look at directly. Admiral. Her communications officer interrupted. Central Command reports similar vessels appearing simultaneously in restricted sectors across the galaxy, all maintaining the same stance. No movement, no communication. Ixora felt her primary heart skip a beat. The humans were supposed to be a minor species, barely able to achieve faster-than-light travel. Their few colonies were scattered and technologically primitive compared to the collective. How had they hidden this level of advancement? Launch probe drones, she ordered. Full spectrum analysis. And get me everything we have on human military capabilities. The drones approached the vessel cautiously. As they drew near, their signals began to distort. One by one, they winked out of existence without a trace. Impossible, whispered her science officer. The drones, they didn't malfunction or get destroyed. They simply ceased to exist the moment they crossed some kind of threshold around the ship. Ixora's secondary hearts began beating faster. Pull up the restricted zone classifications. What's supposed to be in this sector? Her officers worked quickly, bringing up ancient star charts and warning buoys that had kept ships away from this region for thousands of years. The data was fragmentary, most of it lost to time, but one word kept appearing in the oldest records: sleeper. A new signal cut through their communications, raw and powerful, bypassing their encryption as if it didn't exist. The message was simple, transmitted in the common trade language of the collective. Stand down. We are containing the breach. Do not interfere. Before Ixora could respond, space itself seemed to shiver around the human vessel. Reality bent and twisted, and for a moment, she thought she saw something vast and dark, moving behind the veil of normal space-time. Something that had been sleeping, something that was now stirring. All ships, maximum distance, she ordered. Emergency temporal shields. As her fleet retreated, the human ship began to pulse with energy that their sensors couldn't properly read. It was like watching a predator prepare to strike. But Ixora suddenly realized with crystal clarity, they weren't the prey it was hunting. Admiral, her tactical officer's voice shook. We're detecting quantum fluctuations consistent with what? With the ancient Omega-level containment protocols. The ones we thought were myths. The human ship's hull now rippled like liquid metal, patterns of light racing across its surface in impossible geometries. Another message came through. The sleeper must not wake. We have guarded for too long to fail now. Clear the sector. Ixora made her decision. All ships, fall back to safe distance. Alert Central Command. We are dealing with something far beyond our understanding. As her fleet retreated, she watched the human vessel begin its work. The space around it warped and twisted, reality itself seeming to fold and refold like origami in the hands of a master. They had thought themselves the guardians of the galaxy, only to discover that humanity had been silently standing watch over horrors they hadn't even known existed. The real question was, what else were the humans protecting them from? And more importantly, what would happen if they failed? The silent guardian. The Collective's High Council chamber erupted in chaos as Admiral Ixor's report reached them. The massive crystalline dome above reflected the agitated movements of a dozen species representatives, their voices rising in a cacophony of confusion and fear. "Impossible," thundered Counselor Vex, his scaled hide flushing deep crimson. "The humans are barely beyond their solar system. They still use primitive fusion drives." High Speaker Mora, her flowing luminescent form pulsing with anxiety, raised all four hands for silence. "And yet their ships are there, displaying technology that makes our most advanced vessels look like children's toys." The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed multiple human vessels, each positioned at different points around the galaxy, each maintaining their silent vigil. None had fired a shot. None had made any aggressive moves. They simply stood guard, their impossible hulls defying analysis. "New data incoming," announced the Central Eye. The display shifted, showing deep space readings from Admiral Ixor's fleet. The council members fell silent as they watched reality itself bend around the human vessel. "Those energy signatures," whispered Dr. Zinn, the council's chief scientist, his tentacles writhing in excitement. "They're manipulating quantum fields at a fundamental level. This isn't just advanced technology. This is mastery over the fabric of space-time itself." A new alert flashed across the chamber. In the restricted sector where Admiral Ixor's fleet had first encountered the human ship, something was happening. The darkness between the stars was moving. "Magnification, maximum," ordered High Speaker Mora. The display zoomed in, and several council members recoiled. In the void, barely visible against the backdrop of space, massive shapes were stirring. They defied description. Geometries that shouldn't exist, patterns that hurt to look at, movements that seemed to occur in more dimensions than space should allow. "The sleepers," Dr. Zinn breathed. The ancient warnings were true. The human vessel's response was immediate. Its hull began to shimmer with that strange, light-drinking energy. The space around it warped and twisted, forming patterns that seemed to mirror the impossible geometries of the things stirring in the void. "We're receiving a transmission," the AI announced. "Origin, human vessel." The message that played through the chamber was different this time. Not just text, but a full communication. The human voice was calm, almost serene. "This is Guardian Ship Vigilant. We have maintained the seals for 10,000 years. Your activities in this sector have caused a containment breach. We are initiating emergency protocols. Clear all vessels from the area immediately." 10,000 years. Counselor Vex sputtered. "That's impossible. Human civilization isn't even half that old." "Unless," Dr. Zinn interjected, his voice trembling with revelation, "what we thought we knew about humans was merely what they wanted us to see." The display showed the human ship moving into position. Its hull was now fully transformed, looking less like a vessel and more like a tear in reality itself. Energy readings were off the charts, but they weren't weapon signatures. They were containment fields, barriers, and seals of unimaginable power. "Look at the patterns," Dr. Zinn continued, his scientific excitement overriding his fear. "They're not just sealing the breach. They're reinforcing the very structure of space-time itself. The mathematics involved. It's beautiful." In the void, the dark shapes were becoming more distinct. Tentacles the size of solar systems reached through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Eyes that could swallow worlds blinked open in the darkness. The stuff of nightmares made real. But the human ship stood firm. More energy patterns emerged from its hull, forming layers upon layers of quantum barriers. The impossible geometries of the sleepers met the carefully calculated patterns of human technology, and space itself seemed to hold its breath. "They're not just containing it," High Speaker Mora realized. "They're pushing it back. They're healing the breach." The chamber watched in awe as the human vessel continued its work. The dark shapes began to recede, forced back into their ancient prison by powers the Collective hadn't known existed. The very fabric of reality was being rewoven. strengthened, sealed. But questions burned in every mind present. How long had humanity really been out there? What else were they protecting the galaxy from? And most importantly, what would happen when the other sleepers began to stir? The answers, they suspected, would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. Beyond the stars, deep within the restricted sector, reality continued to warp and twist around the human vessel. Admiral Ixora's fleet maintained their distance, watching as ancient horrors pressed against the barriers of normal spacetime. But something was wrong. The containment wasn't holding as it should. Energy fluctuations detected in the quantum barriers, reported her science officer. The human ship, it's struggling. For the first time since its arrival, the vessel showed signs of strain. Its hull rippled with conflicting patterns, the smooth geometries becoming jagged and unstable. Another transmission cut through their communications. This is Guardian Ship Vigilant. The breach is larger than anticipated. Additional support required. Initiating Protocol Omega. Across the galaxy, the other human vessels simultaneously began to move. Space bent around them as they traveled in ways that defied conventional physics, leaving ripples in reality itself. They were converging on this sector, drawn to the growing crisis. In the collective council chamber, the emergency session continued. Dr. Zin's tentacles danced across holographic displays, analyzing the mounting data. The seals are failing, not just in one location, but across multiple points in spacetime. It's as if. As if what? Demanded High Speaker Mora. As if something is actively breaking them. These aren't random failures. Something is coordinating this. A new signal reached the chamber, different from the previous human transmissions. The holographic display shifted, showing the human figure, tall, dressed in a uniform that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The human's eyes held an ancient wisdom that made even the oldest council members feel young. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Guardian Fleet," she announced, her voice carrying an authority that silenced the chamber. "What you are witnessing is not just a containment breach. It is an awakening. The sleepers are not acting independently. They are being roused." "By whom?" High Speaker Mora asked, her luminescent form dimming with concern. "By those who came before. Before us, before you, before the sleepers themselves. They seeded the galaxy with these entities, thinking they could control them. When they failed, they fled to another reality, leaving us, humanity, as guardians." The revelation hit the council like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just achieved this level of technology recently. They had inherited it, been chosen for this role eons ago. "Why?" Councillor Vex demanded. "Why humans? Why not share this knowledge with the collective?" Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held a deep sadness. "Because humanity was young, adaptable, and most importantly, we could see them. Other species looked at the sleepers and saw nothing, their minds unable to process the horror. But humans, we could see them, and we chose to stand guard." On the displays, more human ships arrived in the sector. They moved in perfect coordination, their quantum barriers linking together, forming patterns of unimaginable complexity. The void between stars darkened as the sleepers pushed harder against reality. "We need your help," Admiral Chen continued. "Not your technology. Ours is sufficient. We need your cooperation. The sleepers are breaking free across the galaxy. We can't maintain the pretense of being a primitive species any longer. The time for secrets is over." In the restricted sector, Admiral Ixora watched as the human vessels formed a massive geometric pattern around the breach. Their hulls pulsed in synchronization, reality bending to their will. But the darkness was spreading, and in that darkness, shapes moved with terrible purpose. The battle for existence itself was about to begin, and humanity had finally revealed their true role, not as newcomers to the galactic stage, but as its ancient protectors. The question now was whether the collective would stand with them, or whether ancient prejudices and fear would doom them all. The human ships continued their work, their barriers holding back horrors beyond comprehension, while the collective faced a choice that would determine the fate of all reality. And in the void between stars, the sleepers continued to stir, their ancient hunger awakening after eons of imprisonment. The price of knowledge. Space itself screamed as the barriers between realities stretched to their breaking point. The combined fleet of human guardian ships formed an intricate pattern around the primary breach, their quantum fields interlocking in geometries that defied conventional physics. But it wasn't enough. Multiple containment failures detected, announced the AI across all channels, breaches expanding at geometric rates. Admiral Ixura watched from her command ship as the human vessels fought against the encroaching darkness. Their technology was beyond anything she had ever seen, yet even they seemed to be struggling against what was emerging from the void. In the space between spaces, massive shapes continued to unfold. Eyes larger than solar systems opened, revealing depths of darkness that threatened to consume all of reality. Tentacles of pure void reached through dimensions that shouldn't exist, testing the barriers that humanity had maintained for millennia. Admiral Chen, Ixura transmitted, "My fleet stands ready. Tell us how we can assist." The human admiral's response was immediate. "Your ship's energy matrices can be synchronized with our containment fields. It won't be enough to seal the breaches, but it might buy us time." The collective fleet moved into position, their ships forming secondary patterns around the human vessels. As they watched, the guardian ships began transmitting complex quantum formulas, the mathematics of reality itself. These equations, Dr. Zin's voice came through from the council chamber, his tentacles writhing with excitement despite the danger. They're not just containing the entities, they're defining the very structure of our universe. The humans aren't just fighting the sleepers, they're reinforcing the laws of physics themselves. But even as the combined fleet worked to strengthen the barriers, something changed in the void. The darkness began to pulse with a terrible rhythm. And for the first time, they heard it. A sound that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space, a sound that made minds tremble and souls shrink away in terror. "They're communicating." Admiral Chen's voice was tight with strain. "The sleepers. They're coordinating their efforts. This was never just a random awakening. They're being guided." Through gaps in reality, massive structures became visible. Ancient architecture that predated the galaxy itself. The ruins of the civilization that had created the sleepers, then fled when they couldn't control them. And among those ruins, something was stirring. Energy spike. The warning came too late. A beam of pure darkness lanced out from the ruins, striking one of the guardian ships. The vessel's quantum barriers flared brilliantly, its hull rippling as it fought against the attack. For a moment, it seemed to hold. Then reality itself tore open. The human ship didn't explode. It unraveled, its structure coming apart at the quantum level. The crew had no time to scream as they were erased from existence, their very atoms scattered across dimensions. Guardian ship defiant is lost. Admiral Chen's voice was heavy with grief. All ships recalibrate barriers. They're not just trying to break free. They're trying to unmake everything we've built to contain them. The ruins in the void continued to pulse with terrible energy. More beams of darkness reached out, testing the fleet's defenses. The combined human and collective ships held, but each impact weakened their barriers further. "We need to strike back," Ixura declared. "We can't just defend forever." "Agreed," Chen responded. "But to fight them, we need to understand what we're truly facing." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice held a weight of ancient knowledge. "The sleepers aren't just entities, they're weapons. Living weapons designed to unmake reality itself. And someone is trying to use them again." In the council chamber, the holographic displays showed more ruins becoming visible through the tiers in spacetime. A vast network of ancient structures, all pulsing with the same terrible energy. The previous guardians, High Speaker Moira realized. They didn't just flee. They're trying to come back. The human admiral's response was grim. "Yes, and they want to reclaim what they think is theirs, this entire reality. As if in response to her words, the darkness between the stars began to move with purpose. The sleepers were no longer testing the barriers. They were preparing for war, a war for the very existence of our universe. And humanity, the secret guardians of reality, stood at the front lines with their newfound allies, preparing to face horrors that had once driven an entire civilization to flee to another dimension. The price of their knowledge was about to be paid in full. A new dawn. The combined fleet of human and collective ships hung in formation against the encroaching void. Through the quantum tiers in reality, the ancient ruins pulsed with increasing power, each burst sending waves of unreality that threatened to unravel the very fabric of space-time. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice carried across all channels. Guardian Fleet, initiate protocol terminus. Collective vessels, fall back to safe distance. But Admiral Ixora stood her ground. We stand together, Admiral. Whatever your plan is, we're part of it now. The human admiral's response held a note of respect. Very well. All ships, prepare for dimensional inversion. On the bridge of her flagship, Chen accessed systems that hadn't been used in 10,000 years. The ship's quantum core began to pulse with a new pattern, its energy spreading to the other Guardian vessels. Their hulls shifted, becoming something more than physical matter. The sleepers were never meant to be contained forever, Chen explained as the fleet's transformation continued. They were meant to be used, to unmake reality itself when their creators decided to reset everything. Through the tiers in space-time, massive shapes continued to emerge. The sleepers were fully awake now, their impossible forms stretching across dimensions, guided by the will of their returning creators. But humanity learned something in our millennia of guardianship, Chen continued. We learned that reality isn't just physics and mathematics. It's life. It's consciousness. It's choice. The Guardian ships completed their transformation. They no longer looked like vessels at all, but rather tiers in reality themselves, mirrors of the very horrors they fought against. The collective ship's energy matrices synchronized with them, adding their power to the human technology. In the council chamber, Dr. Zin's tentacles danced across the displays as he analyzed the readings. They're not just fighting the sleepers, he announced in awe. They're rewriting the fundamental laws that allow them to exist. The void between stars erupted in impossible colors as the Guardian fleet engaged the sleepers. Reality itself became a battlefield as human technology clashed with cosmic horrors. The ancient ruins pulsed faster, their creators pushing their weapons harder. But something was changing. The human ships weren't just fighting. They were transforming the very nature of space around them. Every blast from the ruins, every attack from the sleepers, was being absorbed and reformed. Now, Admiral Chen commanded. The Guardian fleet's quantum fields inverted simultaneously. The energy they had been absorbing was released in a cascading wave of restructured reality. The sleepers' forms began to warp and twist, not being destroyed, but rather being rewritten at the most fundamental level. What you created, Chen transmitted toward the ruins, knowing their creators were listening. We have remade. You wanted weapons to unmake reality. We've turned them into its guardians. The sleepers' forms continued to change, their impossible geometries shifting into new patterns. The horror they induced began to fade, replaced by something else, a sense of order, of protection. Humanity didn't just guard the seals, Chen explained to her allies. We studied what was behind them. We learned. We evolved. And we discovered how to change the unchangeable. The ancient ruins shuddered as their creators realized what was happening. The weapons they had created to unmake reality were being transformed into its protectors. Their own technology, turned against them by the species they had chosen as mere caretakers. In a final burst of defiance, the ruins pulsed with all their remaining power. But the transformed sleepers absorbed the energy, their new nature turning destruction into creation. The tiers in reality began to heal, not through force or containment, but through transformation. The Creator's presence faded from the ruins as their plan collapsed. The sleepers, once weapons of unmaking, now stood as guardians themselves, their impossible forms now inspiring awe rather than horror. Admiral Exora watched in amazement as space itself seemed to heal around them. "You didn't just win the battle," she realized. "You changed the rules of reality itself." "Not alone," Chen responded. "The collective's trust, your willingness to stand with us. It proved what we had learned over millennia of guardianship. The strongest force in any reality isn't destruction. It's cooperation, unity, choice." As the fleet regrouped, the transformed sleepers took up their new positions throughout the galaxy. The ancient ruins, now empty of their creator's influence, held new possibilities for understanding the nature of reality itself. "The Age of Secrets is over," Chen announced to the Collective Council. "Humanity stands ready to share what we've learned, to work together openly as we explore what lies beyond the boundaries of known space." The stars seemed to shine brighter as the darkness receded, not through victory in war, but through transformation. Humanity had proven itself not just as guardians, but as teachers, allies, and pioneers of a new understanding of reality itself. And in the vast depths of space, the transformed sleepers stood watch, no longer horrors to be contained, but partners in protecting the very reality they had once been created to destroy.